Man, MMA is one of the greatest sports on planet Earth precisely because of how unpredictable it is. It is the sport of what the fuck moments that leave you completely speechless. Take for example, who would have thought that in 2007, Tim Sylvia would literally shit himself in the octagon? No, seriously, Tim Sylvia pooped his pants after getting guillotined in the octagon. Right. Unpredictable. And that's why in this video, I'm gonna go over 5 of my favorite what the fuck moments in the UFC. Number 5, Khabib jumps the cage after beating Conor McGregor. Alright, so to really get why this whole thing went down, we gotta rewind a little bit and break down what actually led up to it. First of all, let's talk about the rivalry between these two men. Khabib Nurmagomedov and Conor McGregor's feud was nothing short of legendary. It all started when Khabib confronted Conor McGregor's teammate Artem Lobov backstage. You guys remember Artem? Which led to Conor McGregor and his team literally flying to New York. This was at UFC 223 on April 5th of 2018. Armed with a dolly, Conor smashed the bus window while Khabib and other fighters was inside. It caused a lot of injuries, there was a lot of chaos, and that pretty much set the tone for what became probably the most bitter rivalry in MMA history. Now, Conor being Conor didn't exactly stop there. Of course not. His trash talk leading up to UFC 229 on October 6th of 2018 was absolutely relentless. He insulted Khabib's family, his religion, his country, and for Khabib, this wasn't just a fight. It straight up became personal. Now, fast forward to the fight. In round 1, Khabib started off by trying to take Conor McGregor down, and with a bit of effort, he was able to get him down. Once on the ground, he trapped Conor McGregor against the cage, controlling his posture, and was able to land some serious ground and pound shots to wear down Conor McGregor. Khabib's pressure was pretty much relentless, keeping Conor pinned while maintaining dominant positions the whole time. And by the end of the round, Conor looked visibly frustrated and was already starting to feel the weight of Khabib's grappling mastery. Round number 2 is where things got really interesting because at the start of the round, Khabib dropped Conor with an overhand right. And this is not something anybody expected because, well, I mean, Khabib is not really known for being a striker. And Conor McGregor is the guy that's supposed to be a striker, but no. Khabib blasted him all over the face, pause, with a beautiful overhand right, sitting Conor McGregor down. The fight kept going like that, and by round number 4, Khabib had completely taken over. Conor opened the round trying to stay on his feet, using his striking to create some distance, but Khabib quickly shot in for a takedown, drove Conor McGregor's back against the cage, and once there, Khabib methodically advanced his position, securing top control. After a little bit of ground and pound, Khabib transitioned to the back, which is really good at. We've seen him do that many times. And he was able to lock in a beautiful neck crank that left Conor McGregor with no chance but to tap. I mean, he was tapping really fast. It was a dominant finish to a fight that showcased Khabib's unparalleled grappling mastery. But the real madness came afterwards. Khabib wasn't done. This dude was pissed off, most definitely because of all the trash talk, the disrespect, and all the craziness leading up to the fight. This man ran over to the cage, jumped over the cage, and went straight for Conor McGregor's teammate Dillon Danis, igniting a brawl that literally spilled into the crowd. Dude, it was chaos. Security rushed in, fans lost their minds, and the entire arena turned into a complete madhouse. This moment overshadowed what was, let's just be honest, a completely masterful performance by Khabib, but it also became one of the most talked about events in UFC history. Number 4, Jorge Masvidal's flying knee KO of Ben Askren. Ben Askren entered the UFC under unique circumstances, to say the least, and honestly, it shook the MMA world. The UFC decided to trade Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, arguably the greatest flyweight of all time, to one championship in November 2018 for Ben Askren. Mighty Mouse at the time was a legend. He held multiple records, especially the most consecutive title defenses in UFC history at 11, and he dazzled fans with his unmatched skill and creativity. But the UFC wanted fresh blood. They wanted someone like Ben Askren, someone who was undefeated, a former champion, and it didn't really matter that he had a really wrestling-heavy style. Askren made waves right away, not just with his credentials, but with his mouth. The man was known for trash talking and confidence, and as soon as he entered the UFC, he started hyping everything up. His first fight was against Robbie Lawler at UFC 235 on March 2nd, 2019, and that fight was absolutely wild. Askren was able to survive an early onslaught from Robbie Lawler, which included a brutal slam and heavy ground and pound, but then he managed to secure, a controversial bulldog choke victory in the first round. And the win might not have been pretty. I mean, he got his head freaking knocked around the whole entire time, but it kept his undefeated record intact and set the stage for bigger fights. Then came Jorge Masvidal. At that time, Masvidal was actually coming into his own after having a few lackluster performances, losing a few fights he didn't really believe he should have lost. He really found his stride, especially after he knocked out Darren Till. This was at UFC Fight Night 147, March 16, 2019. The KO was absolutely stunning, but it wasn't just that KO that caught fans' attention when it came to Masvidal. It was his charisma, his authenticity, and just his overall aura that he showcased in the octagon at that time. After that fight, he made headlines again by delivering the infamous 3-piece in a soda backstage to Leon Edwards, which showed the world that he was a real outside the cage fighter, as real as it gets, and fans really loved that about Masvidal. And the bad blood between him and Ben Askren was real. Masvidal called Askren a crotch sniffer, mocking his wrestling heavy style and dismissing him as someone who's just one-dimensional wrestler. Askren, in return, labeled Masvidal as a journeyman, someone who couldn't handle elite competition. The trash talk between these two guys wasn't just surface level, it was deeply personal, and they were determined to kill each other when fight started. The fight starts, and the tension is already off the charts. Masvidal begins by walking back and forth with his hand behind his back, a smirk on his face, looking super confident. And let me tell you, yeah, he should have been very confident because he prepared for that moment. He drilled that flying knee repeatedly in camp over and over again, knowing exactly that Ben Askren was going to do what he always does, which is dive for a takedown the moment the fight starts. With his hands behind his back, without warning, Masvidal runs headfirst at Ben Askren, full speed. Ben Askren instinctively dips his head to try to go for a takedown, ready to shoot, and that's when Masvidal blasted him with a beautiful flying knee. And in 5 seconds, Askren is out cold, and history is made. It's not just the fastest KO ever, it's a moment that cemented Masvidal as a legend in the UFC. Number 3. Conor McGregor knocks out Jose Aldo in 13 seconds. Where do I even begin when it comes to Conor McGregor? Since his UFC debut in 2013, this man had taken the featherweight division and the whole entire sport by storm, tearing through opponents with a unique style that was almost hypnotic to watch. His wide karate stance allowed him to stay very elusive while setting up devastating counters. And dude, that left hand was a sniper. The amount of fights he ended with that left hand is crazy. Beyond his fight skills, Conor's larger-than-life personality really did set him apart. His trash talk was at a different level, getting deep into opponent's head, but it wasn't just trash talk. He backed it up every single time. He dressed like a movie star, spoke with unshakable confidence, and he also had an uncanny ability to predict how his fights would end. Now, coming from Ireland, a country that's not really known for producing MMA stars, Conor was truly an anomaly, someone who defied every expectation and became a phenomenon both inside and outside the cage. Jose Aldo, on the other hand, was the undisputed king of the featherweight division. He was undefeated for 10 years with 7 successful title defenses in the UFC. And during that time, honestly, Aldo did not really seem beatable. He just seemed like nothing could stop this man. His dominance came from not only his fight IQ, but he was extremely explosive, really good Muay Thai. His leg kicks were legendary, the kind of strikes that would cripple even the toughest guys. He dismantled opponents after opponent with precision, controlling the pace of the fight, and his takedown defense is legendary. Aldo was dominant. He was a champion, a true champion. And so when it was time to fight Conor McGregor, a lot of people were confident that Conor was just not going to be the one to stop Aldo. Aldo definitely was confident of that fact. Now, when the fight started, it was pretty clear that Conor McGregor was extremely confident. Aldo, on the other hand, he looked visibly shaken by the moment a little bit. Aldo, being super eager, lunged forward and Conor read him perfectly like a book. In a split second, he stepped back just slightly and with precision landed that beautiful left hand that connected flush on Jose Aldo's chin. Aldo fell, Conor landed a little bit of ground and pound, and that's it. Fight over. In just 13 seconds, Conor McGregor stopped the king of the featherweights. And at the time, I believe that was actually the fastest finish in UFC. That was before Jorge Masvidal did what he did to Ben Askren. It was crazy. Absolutely insane. A vast majority of us could not believe that was even possible, and we witnessed it happen. And that was one of the moments that turned Conor McGregor into a true global superstar. Number 2, Anderson Silva breaks his leg against Chris Weidman. Alright, so this one still hurts to think about because, man, let me tell you, I still remember how I felt when I first saw that happen. Before we talk about this sequence, though, let's talk about Anderson Silva's dominance because, let me tell you, it was legendary. This man had 10 title defenses. He was in a 16-fight winning streak in the UFC, and he had defeated so many champions. Not just that, Anderson Silva had a style that at the time was absolutely unique. His striking was incredible. No one had seen anyone in the UFC perform striking like Anderson Silva was. This was a level of striking you would see in K1, but he was doing it in MMA. It was amazing to watch. Not just that, he had a very fun style to watch. He would taunt his opponents, he would drop his hands, he would stand with his back against the cage, he would do all kinds of shit to show you that he was levels above his opponents. But this is exactly what got him in trouble when he finally met Chris Weidman at UFC 162 on July 6, 2013. Throughout the fight, Anderson Silva was taunting Weidman, dropping his hands, leaning back to evade punches. I mean, it was classic Silva, the kind of showboating that had worked for him in the past, making world-class fighters look foolish. But this time, Weidman stayed composed. In the second round, when Anderson Silva was leaning back a little bit too much, Chris Weidman, I believe it was a jab, and then it was like a back fist kind of shot, and caught Silva with a beautiful left hand, which dropped him. Everybody watched Anderson fall to the ground. It was like, oh my God, it finally caught up to him. Now, that was the first fight. And in the rematch, he came out way more serious. In round 1, Weidman opened up with some feeler punches to gauge Anderson Silva's range, and he quickly shot for a takedown. He was able to get Anderson Silva down to the ground near the cage. Silva used the wall walk to get back to his feet, and Weidman pinned him against the cage for a little bit, trying to control him and get a takedown again. Anderson Silva tried to use his classic Muay Thai plum, which had worked for him in the past, to try to land blows on Weidman, but Weidman countered him with a right hook over the top, which sat down Anderson Silva and allowed Weidman to get on top and essentially finish the round on top, landing some brutal ground and pound. Round number 2. The tension is literally palpable. It's like, oh my goodness, is Anderson Silva on his way to losing this fight again? I mean, it's really looking like Chris Weidman is the better guy. Silva begins to find his rhythm, throwing those sharp leg kicks, which, by the way, these were the same exact leg kicks that he landed in the first fight. In fact, those leg kicks were one of the few strikes that worked for Anderson Silva the best in the first fight. And it was obvious that Chris Weidman and his team had prepared for that, and they adjusted perfectly. Midway through the round, Anderson Silva tried to land another kick, and Weidman checked it. And as soon as he checked it, the entire arena fell silent. Anderson Silva falls to the ground and his leg is broken. Like, you can hear the man screaming in agony at the pain of his leg broken. I don't quite remember what my reaction was at the time, but all I know is that that was one of the craziest freaking moments I've ever seen in MMA. Like, just absolutely mind-blowing. It's not the first time we've seen somebody's leg get broken in the UFC or in MMA, but the fact that it happened to Anderson Silva, it was just absolutely insane. And watching Anderson crying and, you know, being taken out, it was horrific. And it's forever going to be one of the most unforgettable moments in MMA history. And so here we are at number 1, the craziest thing that I personally have ever seen happen in the UFC. The biggest what the fuck moment. Chris Weidman breaks his own leg against Uriah Hall. Now, I just literally got done telling you guys about how Anderson Silva broke his leg against Chris Weidman in their second fight. And now Chris Weidman breaks his leg against Uriah Hall. It literally felt like karma. Like the MMA gods were looking at Chris Weidman and saying, all right, you know this thing you caused to happen to the other guy? Now you're going to see exactly how it feels. Like, I still remember I was watching that fight live on stream with my jiu-jitsu professor at the time. And when it happened, I was like, oh my God. That is unbelievable.
We just talked about it. That
is unbelievable.
Yeah.
That is unbelievable.
The chances of that happening, man.
That's unbelievable. Chris Weidman just broke his leg the same exact way Anderson Silva broke his leg. Like, just absolutely mind-blowing. But let's talk about the actual fight. It really wasn't too long. The fight started with Weidman and Uriah Hall being cautious of each other. Uriah is a dangerous striker, Weidman's a dangerous grappler. Obvious that Chris Weidman was eventually going to try to take down Uriah Hall, but at one moment, this was in round 1, he steps in, throws a right kick to the legs, Uriah Hall checks it, and dude, Chris Weidman falls to the ground the same exact way that Anderson Silva fell. And at the time, I know we all weren't sure exactly what happened. Like, it took a moment to notice that, oh my God, his leg is broken. His leg is broken the same exact way Anderson Silva's legs was broken against Chris Weidman. White fighter breaks black fighter's leg. Black fighter then breaks white fighter's leg. I know, cringe joke, but hey, it's kind of wild how things come full circle, huh? But that's it. There you have it. 5 of my most craziest what the fuck moments in the UFC. And let me tell you, man, it's 2025. MMA fighters are only getting better. They're getting more dangerous. They're getting more skilled. And with more skill and with more danger, it is without a shred of a doubt that we are definitely going to see more what the fuck moments moving forward. And I, for one, I can't wait to see what happens. That's it. Let me know in the comment section what your top 5 what the fuck moments have been in the UFC. I'm very curious to see what you guys say. And I'll see you guys later. Peace out. Have a good one.